Zhang Fan became a small village doctor in the mountain village, hoping to rely on unparalleled medical skills and unparalleled divine achievements to ensure the safety of the area. However, his popularity was too high, causing villagers to rush to visit him. Keywords of the novel. Taoyuan Rural Little Doctor No Pop-ups, Taoyuan Rural Little Doctor TXT Complete Collection Download, Taoyuan Rural Little Doctor Latest Chapter Reading. Chapter 1. Baishi Village. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Baishi Village. Baishi Village is a small mountain village located deep in the mountains. The scenery here is beautiful, similar to a paradise. At 8 p.m. there are dim yellow lights shining inside the village clinic. As a village doctor, Zhang Fan received a special guest tonight, so much so that after checking the other person's condition, his face felt a bit awkward. Xiao Fan. The young woman saw that Zhang Fan was a bit distracted and waved her hand in front of him. Zhang Fan immediately regained consciousness and coughed awkwardly. Sorry, Auntie, I was a bit distracted just now. Zhang Fan's eyes flickered up and down, afraid to look at the young woman in front of him. The young woman's face turned red with a blush, and her watery eyes were shy and half shy. Just a glance at her made her body tingle. Recently, my chest has been hurting so much that I can't bear it. After touching it, it seems like there is a hard lump. Tian blushed with embarrassment and her voice gradually decreased. How much does it hurt? Zhang Fan instinctively looked over, his collar bulging and looking very full. Living in the same village, although he has no blood relationship with Tian, in terms of seniority, he is at least a young aunt. If it weren't for her husband's death 2 months ago, she wouldn't have become a widow and formed a hard lump. Tian whispered, it hurts just by touching it, and I can't wear tight clothes either. Perhaps it's breast hyperplasia, Zhang Fan said as he tried to calm his mood. Is it serious? Is it a tumor? Tian's small face instantly turned pale and tense. I'm not sure about your level of development yet, I need to check. Zhang Fan spoke up. Tian's body trembled for a moment, and her tight neckline also shook slightly. Inspection. Yes, if it's not serious, a massage can help. Zhang Fan pulled open the curtain behind him and said, Auntie, lie down first. Tian walked to the compartment with a hint of timidity and shyness. Definitely, do we have to check like this? Yes, Auntie. Tian felt half relieved when she saw his calm expression. She sat on a small bed, looking down to unbutton her clothes. Good white, a fair and delicate skin was exposed, and Zhang Fan instinctively swallowed saliva. Tian shyly took off her shirt. All of them attract Zhang Fan's attention. Ah! Tian originally wanted to ask Zhang Fan if she wanted to continue, but she saw him staring straight at her collar. She shouted out in silence and quickly turned her back. Zhang Fan's thoughts were interrupted by her voice and he came to his senses. Yes, I'm sorry Auntie. He grew up in the village and attended junior high school in the town. Later, he was admitted to a medical university and became the only college student in the village. However, there aren't many girls in school who are as beautiful as Auntie. Now that I see Tian, I have long been drawn to her. Should I continue? Tian was embarrassed by the hot gaze of the young village doctor in front of her, but for some reason, she felt a sense of pride in her heart. It's a shame to be seen by men. Zhang Fan pinched himself hard, trying to clear himself up. Well, take off all your clothes so it's easier to check. Tian turned her back and took off the last item as well. Zhang Fan put on rubber gloves. Does it hurt here? He stroked one area and pressed it carefully. Pain. Tian let out a moan in her mouth, feeling both unbearable and painful. Zhang Fan's whole body tightened with this sound, and then a thin sweat emanated from his body. He closed his eyes and continued to press with his hand, asking a question every time he passed by. How is it, Xiao Fan? Is it serious? Wan Qian blushed and asked softly. The nodule is a bit severe and has already formed a hard lump. Zhang Fan provides accurate judgments based on his own experience. Ah, what should we do then? Wan Qian asked in a panic. Auntie, don't be afraid. You should pay more attention to rest in your daily life. In addition, I will prescribe a few pairs of traditional Chinese medicine for promoting blood circulation and removing blood stasis for you. Drink it for a few days and it will be fine. Suddenly, footsteps came from outside. Xiao Fan, are you there? I'm Grandpa Tang. There is an old voice outside. It's my father. In law. Wan Qian was so frightened that her face turned pale. She sat on the bed at a loss. If her father in law sees her lying here in disheveled clothes, that would be a big trouble. Xiao Fan, are you there? Tang Wuye was puzzled in his heart. The door was still open just now. Why is it closed now? He pushed hard, but couldn't push it away no matter how hard he tried. What should we do? Wan Qian was so anxious that she was about to cry. Auntie, just stay here and don't move. I'll come up with a solution. Zhang Fan pulled up the curtain and only opened the door after it was tightly blocked. He took a deep breath. Grandpa Tang, why did you come here? Zhang Fan wore a smile on his face, concealing the panic in his eyes. Tang Wuye stood at the door and looked around, taking a sip of his dry tobacco bag. Let's go in and talk, he said. He pushed Zhang Fan into the door and then closed it. Zhang Fan quickly sat in front of the curtain and brought tea and water to Tang Wuye. He glanced behind him with a hint of guilt before asking, Grandpa Tang, what are you looking for me for? Tang Wuye let out a bitter smile and placed a bottle of top-quality wine in front of him. Grandpa, what do you mean by this? Zhang Fan was stunned. I'm actually here to ask for your help. Zhang Fan quickly spoke up, you tell me, Grandpa. As long as I can help, I will definitely help. Tang Wuye took a deep breath and said, have you seen your aunt? Zhang Fan and Wan Qian, who were hiding behind the curtain, were both shocked in their hearts. See, what's wrong? Zhang Fan felt a bit guilty. Your aunt is pretty, isn't she? Tang Wuye smiled. Zhang Fan knew that Wan Qian was behind, but he nodded without hesitation, Auntie is indeed very beautiful. Wan Qian blushed with embarrassment. Does Zhang Fan also think she is beautiful? Ah, the child has no mother, it's a long story. Tang Wuye knocked the tobacco pot on the table, let out a long sigh, and pulled out the excuse. Xiao Fan, everyone is in the same village. We usually look down and don't see each other. You know about my family's situation. My son ran a large truck and passed away in a car accident 2 months ago, didn't he? His departure completely left us, the old couple. Under the dim light, Tang Wuye's eyebrows were furrowed with sorrow, and the wrinkles on his face grew deeper and deeper. Tang Wuye's son is named Tang Chuang, also known as Chuangzi. He is 5 or 6 years older than Zhang Fan. When he was young, Zhang Fan often followed the other person's buttocks and ate dust. Although they are uncles and nephews in terms of seniority, their relationship is similar to growing up naked. So, the death of Chuangzi not only dealt a heavy blow to Tang Wuye's family, but also saddened Zhang Fan's heart. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. My sister-in-law was bitten by a snake. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 2. My sister-in-law was bitten by a snake. Grandpa Tang, after death, one cannot be resurrected. You must mourn. Xiao Fan, you don't need to comfort me. Chuangzi has been dead for over 2 months now, and both my wife and I have already thought about it. Tang Wuye looked out the window, with a few strands of blood crawling out of his murky old eyes. Although our son is gone, we in the Tang family cannot go extinct. So, I came to see you today just to ask for your help with this. Ah. Zhang Fan was stunned for a moment. What does it mean that the Tang family cannot be extinct? Behind the curtain, Wan Qian trembled all over and couldn't help but tightly clamp her legs. Grandpa Tang, is it possible that my aunt is already pregnant? Oh, my adventurer is a bad guy, he doesn't have that ability. Tang Wuye said with hatred that iron cannot turn into steel. So what you said about the Tang family cannot be denied. Before he could finish speaking, Zhang Fan suddenly realized that there was a possibility that shocked him. Grandpa Tang, I can't do it at all. He quickly waved his hand to refuse. Xiao Fan, you have no blood relationship with our Tang family, so you don't have to bear the so-called ethics and morals. Furthermore, as you grew up with Huzi, I treat you as my own and let you continue the incense for our Tang family. I can rest assured. At the thought of Zhang Fan being able to make him hold his chubby and white grandson, all the wrinkles on Tang Wuye's face relaxed. No, Grandpa Tang, Wan Qian is my little aunt. How could I do that with him? Zhang Fan waved his hand repeatedly, his head getting bigger. What can't be done? Tang Wuye clapped the table and stood up. Our small mountain village is isolated from the world and doesn't have as many ethical and moral values. Anyway, our Tang family can't stand out. Speaking of this, he softened his tone and continued. Xiao Fan, to be honest with you, if it weren't for my daughter-in-law's disobedience, I would have personally taken care of it. Tang Wuye's generation did not receive much good education since childhood. So ethical and moral values with universal value do not constrain their ability to act like shackles. The current Tang Wuye only has one obsession, which is that the Tang family cannot be outdone. To achieve this goal, he can do anything. Zhang Fan looked at Grandpa Tang incredulously, because he had already heard something from the other person's words. Does the daughter-in-law refuse? It seems that this old man has done something to his aunt before. His heart is in a mess. What should we do? Are you really going to agree to Grandpa Tang's request? No way. This matter is of great significance. We cannot make hasty decisions. Calm down, Zhang Fan smiled and said, Grandpa Tang, do you think this is okay? It's really against common sense to talk to my aunt about that matter. Please allow me to think about it for 2 days. Seeing the other party let go, Tang Wuye smiled comfortingly and patted his shoulder, saying, Xiao Fan, I know this will be difficult for you. But if the Tang family has no descendants, even my spouse and I will die in peace on the road to the underworld. So you should seriously consider this matter, and our Tang family's incense is up to you. After speaking, Tang Wuye opened the door and walked out with his shoulders hunched. Grandpa Tang, your burning knife. Keep it, I'll give you courage when we do that. A spark of dry smoke rose from the distant darkness, and Tang Wuye's hunched back gradually disappeared into the night. Behind the curtain, it wasn't until her husband walked away that Wan Qian dared to lift the door curtain and walk out. Seeing her, Zhang Fan felt extremely embarrassed. Xiao Fan, do you think Auntie is not beautiful? No, that's not what I meant. So, is your aunt not worthy of you? Not really. Zhang Fan sat on the chair, feeling very cramped. Wan Qian's face blushed with shyness, like a seductive red begonia that swayed her mind. Since Chuangzi passed away, there have been no more men to comfort her. And her mature figure seemed to be filled with desire, exuding even more fullness. Standing in front of such a beautiful woman, it must be false to say that Zhang Fan is not attracted. You also know Grandpa Tang's temper, stubborn like a cow. Once he recognizes the truth, even with a tractor, he can't pull it back. If you don't agree to his request to continue the tradition of the Tang family, he will definitely find others and even force me. So, even if you show great kindness, have pity on me. When Wan Qian spoke of her sadness, her knees softened and she knelt down for Zhang Fan. Auntie, what are you doing? Zhang Fan was greatly surprised and quickly helped her up. If you really don't want to stay at the Tang family, you can just leave, there's no need to feel sad about this. Anyway, Chuangzi has already passed away. Tang Wuye can't stop his daughter-in-law from remarrying, can he? Xiao Fan, the Tang family is very powerful. Even if I could just leave, what about my elderly parents? At first, Tang Chuang spent a lot of money to marry Wan Qian. For this reason, Tang Wuye almost emptied his entire family. If Wan Qian dares to escape from Baishi village without laying a single egg or a half for their Tang family, it is feared that Tang Wuye, who has no money or resources, will carry a hoe to her mother's house to risk his life. It is precisely for this reason that Wan Qian has never dared to leave rashly. Okay. Zhang Fan, who understood the truth behind it, couldn't help but sigh. Xiao Fan, if you really pity your aunt, I'll be your person tonight. Anyway, it's better to choose a day than to collide with it. Since her father-in-law has already chosen a person to sow incense for her, she will strike while the iron is hot and it will be natural. Otherwise, if you miss Zhang Fan, you won't know what kind of tricks that stubborn guild will play with. The short shirt and shorts peeled off Wan Qian's body, revealing her mature and full jade body. This beautiful woman stood tall and graceful in front of him, and Zhang Fan felt his desire surge up, charging straight to his forehead. Lying trough. Too much. Zhang Fan touched his nose, really worried about nosebleeds. Wan Qian grabbed his arm, dragged it into the inner room, and then pressed it onto the bed. A strong aroma emanated from his aunt's hot jade body, and Zhang Fan felt his 5 organs catching fire and his 7 souls smoking. Why do the Tang family have such virtues? Grandpa Tang is tough enough, but who knew my aunt was even harder than him? Once someone is identified, they don't even consider it and force them to push back. Alright, Zhang Fan has acknowledged it. Anyway, I can't escape this matter of sowing incense myself. Dong dong dong. Just then, there was a hurried knocking on the door outside. Someone is here. Wan Qian's lustful face showed a hint of disappointment. Take advantage of this opportunity. Zhang Fan quickly got out of bed and said, Auntie, please wait a moment. I'll go see who's here. Arrive at the door. Dr. Zhang, it's not good. My sister-in-law was bitten by a snake. The newcomer is a little girl from our village named Chunhua, who is not very old and has just started junior high school. She wore a fried dough twists braid, a pink vest, and her white face was full of tears. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Saving People. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Saving People. Did you bite very seriously? Zhang Fan quickly asked. The spring flowers nodded heavily. You wait outside first, I'll go back to the house and get the medicine box, and I'll go with you right away. After saying these words, Zhang Fan returned to the room, lifted the door curtain, and saw Wan Qian sitting on the bed covered in sheets. Auntie, you heard what you just said. Sister Su Rong was bitten by a snake. I need to go and take a look. Alas, Su Rong also had a difficult fate. Without her husband, she was actually bitten by a venomous snake. Wan Qian sighed and thought of Su Rong with a feeling of empathy. You go quickly and see if our Rong has been bitten seriously. After saying these words, she couldn't help but add, I'll wait for you to come back. Although I can't sow now, the fertilizer has already been applied. Can't you leave me to err? Wan Qian shyly lowered her head and her face turned red. Zhang Fan supported his forehead with his hand, feeling conflicted in his heart. It seems that Aunt Wan Qian insists on borrowing seeds from herself. However, at this point, he doesn't have extra time to consider. After all, saving people is important. So he stepped onto the medicine box, walked out of the clinic, and ran with the spring flowers, disappearing into the darkness. On the village path, as the two of them hurried on, Zhang Fan asked. Xiaohua, how did your sister.in.law get bitten? My sister.in.law came back from outside and wanted to rest for a while. Who knew there was a snake on the bed, and she was bitten as soon as she pulled the blanket open, she said with a tearful voice, have you seen clearly what a snake looks like? Chunhua sobbed and said, it's a blue snake with patterns on its body. Zhang Fan's heart was startled. As the saying goes, the more vibrant something is, the more toxic it is. Snakes are no exception. Arriving at home, Chunhua took Zhang Fan to the room, and a woman lay in bed. Zhang Fan immediately stepped forward to check, and the woman's face turned slightly blue. Where did you bite? Chunhua cried and stepped forward to open the woman's shorts. There was a clearly visible wound on her thigh, and black blood was flowing out from 2 small holes. Zhang Fan was secretly shocked. This snake has strong toxicity. Do you have Baijiu? The higher the degree, the better. Yes, I'll go get it. Chunhua quickly ran out of the room. In no time, she came out with a bottle of wine. Zhang Fan opened the wooden box, which contained a small cloth bag and several silver needles. Then Zhang Fan took out a knife and poured baijiu on it. The small knife was only the size of a thumb, and Zhang Fan was extremely fast, cutting on the wound of Mrs. Arung. Suddenly, blood flowed like a torrent. But what flows out is pitch-black poisonous blood. Zhang Fan remained calm and took out 2 silver needles, piercing them into the acupoint next to the wound. Brother Zhang, will my aunt be okay? Spring Flower's tears surged, and as she looked at Su Rong's wound, she cried even more sadly. Su Rong's lips turned black, and Zhang Fan's heart was startled. This toxin is spreading so fast. We need to quickly suck out the poison. But there is no vacuum here, we can only use our mouths. Her slender legs were placed in front of Zhang Fan, and he dared not have any evil thoughts at this moment. Zhang Fan pulled apart Su Rong's leg and exposed the wound. He took a deep breath and aimed it at the wound, then took a deep breath. Pain, Su Rong's consciousness gradually revived, her face turned pale, and she murmured something. Sister-in-law. Zhang Fan vomited black blood, and seeing that the method worked, he lowered his head again to suck out the black blood. And at this moment, Su Rong opened her eyes and saw someone bowing their head between her legs. She tightened all over, and her pale face now added a touch of redness. The sharp pain and spicy itching mixed and interwoven from the wound, causing her heart to accelerate as well. Zhang Fan spat out black blood and said, Sister Rong, you need to relax, otherwise it will accelerate the spread of toxins. She collapsed on the bed, covering her face, and her voice couldn't say whether she was afraid or shy. Okay, she said. Zhang Fan continued to work hard until the last mouthful of blood spat out before he stopped moving. Pour baijiu into your mouth to gargle, and then sterilized the silver needle. He wiped his sweat and withdrew the silver needle. Alright, I've already sucked out all the blood, it's okay. Su Rong woke up at the moment and spoke unnaturally, thank you. She looked at Zhang Fan, who exuded the aura of an adult man, and her heart jumped uncontrollably. Sister-in-law, fortunately you're okay. Spring Flowers burst into tears and smiled, moving forward to embrace Su Rong. You child, why are you still crying? Su Rong smiled, her face still a bit pale. Chunhua sniffed and said, I'm just afraid. Su Rong patted her shoulder, wanting to stand up, but found that her pants were lifted up halfway, revealing her fair skin. Ah! She panicked and put down her pants. Thinking of the scene just now. Her cheeks blushed with embarrassment to the bottom of her ears. Zhang Fan's face was hot and spicy, and he coughed lightly. Sister-in-law, since you're okay, I'll leave first. Xiaohua, go see Dr. Zhang off. It's okay, I'll first check if there are snakes around. That snake is very poisonous, it would be bad if it bites a person again. Xiaohua, take good care of your sister. In law. If there's anything wrong, come find me immediately." Zhang Fan picked up the wooden box and turned around to leave. "Sister-in-law! Sister-in-law!" Chunhua reached out her hand and shook it in front of Su Rong's eyes. "What?" Su Rong regained her senses and her eyes were a bit flustered. "What are you thinking?" Su Rong didn't want her niece to know that she was peeking at Zhang Fan, so she quickly changed the topic. "Take out the sulfur and sprinkle it around the room." Chunhua immediately nodded and said, "Okay." She walked quickly and disappeared in an instant. Su Rong stared blankly at her wound and suddenly remembered the scene of Zhang Fan lying between her legs to help her suck blood. His face immediately turned red and hot again. "Ah! No way! What am I really thinking?" Zhang Fan searched for the grass outside for a long time but couldn't find any trace of the snake. Presumably bitten someone and fled in shock. What can be prevented and controlled at the moment is to tell the villagers to pay more attention to safety and sprinkle some sulfur. Zhang Fan wants to go back as soon as possible. After all, there is still a little ant waiting to be sown in the clinic. Thinking of this, he carried a medicine box with him. Hurry back along the path paved with bluestones under the moonlight. The quiet countryside, with the crisp sound of frogs and the chirping of night insects, everything appears quiet and peaceful. Zhang Fan didn't go far when he suddenly heard the sound of shouting from Su Rong's sister-in-law's house behind him. "Stinky girls, I advise you not to be disrespectful." A rough and wild male voice came, obviously already angry. "Get out of here! Get out of here!" Su Rong roared, trying to push the man away. The man remained calm and pushed Su Rong to the ground. "Sister-in-law, if it weren't for me borrowing money to treat my elder brother's illness, he would have died a long time ago. It's too heartless of you to run after I finish using it now. I have no conscience. Do you have the face to say this?" Su Rong laughed angrily and got up from the ground, looking disheveled. She was already weak enough due to the snake venom in her body. But at this moment, Uncle Fu Chuanwu unexpectedly brought someone to ask for a high-interest loan. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Heroes Save Beauty. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Heroes Save Beauty. Isn't this taking advantage of someone's danger? Second brother, sister-in-law is weak. Don't make things difficult for her, okay? The little face of Chunhua is covered in tears. "Little girl, get the hell out of here." The second person, Fu Chuanwu, pushed the younger sister away. If he doesn't pay off the high-interest loan tonight, the old man who is asking for the debt will probably make it difficult for him to make ends meet. "Fu Chuanwu, do you still have human nature? Xiaohua is your own sister, how could you treat her like this?" Su Rong painfully lifted the little flower and protected it behind her. Since her husband Fu Chunwen passed away, she has been living with her younger sister Chunhua. So, the relationship between the two is much closer than that between wandering ghosts and Fu Chuanwu. "Stop talking nonsense to me and get the money quickly. As long as I take the money, I'll leave." Fu Chuanwu pulled over a stool and sat down. There is a posture of never giving up without giving money. "In order to treat your elder brother's illness, we borrowed a lot of money from you, but you didn't tell us it was a high-interest loan." Su Ronghong's eyes were fixed, her chest heaving up and down due to anger. High-interest loans are a terrifying thing. Back then, in order to treat her husband's illness, Su Rong and his wife asked their younger brother to borrow 100,000 yuan. In recent years, due to rolling profits, the number has risen to a very terrifying level. Even if we sell all our property, it won't be enough to repay it. "Sister-in-law, you can't blame me for this. You said you wanted to borrow money, but you didn't say you couldn't borrow high-interest loans." Fu Chuanwu opened his hand and felt no remorse for Su Rong's condemnation. "Tell her so much, why take the person away?" The man next to him became impatient and was about to grab Su Rong's hand. "What are you doing? Don't come over." Su Rong took a panicked step back. Don't you bully my sister. Law. Chunhua stepped forward and spoke loudly. At this point, Zhang Fan had already turned back. What are you doing? He walked over with a calm face and stood in front of Su Rong. Dr. Zhang. Su Rong missed a beat when she saw Zhang Fan. But she spoke anxiously, Dr. Zhang, hurry up and leave. These people are not easy to deal with. Sister-in-law, you don't have to worry, I'm here. Zhang Fan comforted. It's not your business here, I advise you to leave quickly. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Fu Chuanwu winked at the other two people. They immediately stepped forward and grabbed Su Rong's hand. Ah! Su Rong's face turned pale with fear. Damn it! Zhang Fan's gaze sank and he quickly pulled Su Rong back. Kid, this is between us and this stinky girl. I advise you not to meddle in your affairs. The man's gaze was fierce, and he drew a dagger from behind. The dagger emitted a cold light, making one's hair stand on end. Fu Chuanwu, Su Rong is your sister. Law. How could you treat her like this? Zhang Fansheng was furious. Bullying one's own family with outsiders. Is this still human? It's just a beast. Fu Chuanwu's gaze sank as he said, what do you know? I'm helping her. That's right, it's natural for her to pay off debts. She can't afford to pay back the money, so she'll have to use something else to offset the debt. The man smiled inwardly and spoke. He just touched Su Rong's hand, white, tender, and smooth. Let his mind ripple. No wonder the boss keeps thinking about it. Zhang Fan noticed their gaze, greedy and disgusting. The man's lewd gaze looked at Su Rong recklessly. Su Rong blushed with anger. Shameless. Zhang Fan, what's wrong? Do you still want heroes to save the beauty? Fu Chuanwu sneered. Humph. Although I don't want to be a hero, as long as I'm here, it's impossible for you to take Sister Rong away. Zhang Fan spoke with a resounding voice, determined to fight the other person to the end. Toast, don't eat, fine. I see you're looking for death. The man next to him snorted coldly and swung his dagger towards Zhang Fan. Although it is extremely fast, in Zhang Fan's opinion, it seems like it has been delayed. Zhang Fan dodged towards the side and the dagger fell into the air. The man was frightened, this person's speed is so fast. But he quickly swung his second punch. Another man, upon seeing this, also rushed towards Zhang Fan. Not good. Zhang Fan was greatly surprised and quickly dodged towards the side. Meanwhile, he instinctively swung his left fist. Bang! The man fell to the ground in pain, covering his chest and screaming in agony. But Zhang Fan didn't have time to think, and a rustling sound came in his ear. Raid! Zhang Fan bent down, dodged a blow, and then swung another punch with his backhand. Ah! Mid-abdomen. Fu Chuanwu's face changed instantly. When did this kid become so powerful? Zhang Fan never expected that the punch he swung contained such great power. And those people's movements also slowed down a lot in his eyes. What's going on here? Is it related to the strange book I read? Zhang Fan looked at his hands and a hint of disbelief flashed in his eyes. Zhang Fan, do you know who the person behind me is? Fu Chuanwu picked up the stick and spoke fiercely, if you dare to harm his good deeds, he will definitely not let you go. Fu Chuanwu. You bastard. Su Rong aggressively picked up the hoe and, taking advantage of Fu Chuanwu's negotiations with Zhang Fan, directly hit him in the back of the head. Bang! Sister Rong. Zhang Fan widened his eyes. The hoe hit Fu Chuanwu's head, and blood poured out immediately. Su Rong had never seen this scene before, and her aura immediately disappeared. The hoe fell to the ground, and her face turned pale. There was such a big commotion at Su Rong's house. The villagers in the mountains have long been alarmed. At this moment, everyone opened the door, holding flashlights, and gathered around here. Not good, the situation has escalated. Fu Chuanwu cursed inwardly. As a person from Baishi village, he knows the character of the villagers. If it is known that he came back with outsiders to bully his sister. In law, he must be skinned. It's not suitable to stay here for a long time, let's withdraw. Although he suffered a great loss in Su Rong's hands, he covered his bloody head and didn't dare to stay for long. He immediately took advantage of the night and rushed into the nearby grass, taking a small path to escape without a trace. Sister Rong, it's okay. That bastard Fu Chuanwu has left. Zhang Fan quickly came over to comfort and took off a coat to put on his sister. In law. Xiao Fan, I'm so scared, Wu Wu. Su Rong threw herself into Zhang Fan's arms and wept bitterly, trembling like a startled quail. Don't be afraid, sister. In law. I'm here. Zhang Fan patted the other person's shoulder and comforted them softly. Holding a beautiful woman in my arms, the faint body fragrance wafts away, which is the smell of shampoo or shower gel, very pleasant. Let Zhang Fan's mind sway. Xiao Fan, what are you doing here? Suddenly, a woman's voice came from behind. Zhang Fan turned around to look. It was none other than Aunt Wan Qian. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Medical Treasure Record. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Medical Treasure Record. Originally, Wan Qian was waiting left and right on the bed in the clinic, but couldn't see Zhang Fan coming back to sew. She walked out of the clinic with unbearable itching and rushed all the way to Su Rong's home. Unexpectedly, as soon as I arrived here, I saw Zhang Fan and Su Rong hugging each other. Ah! Little auntie, why did you come? The subconscious separation between Zhang Fan and Su Rong. If I don't come again, I'm afraid you'll have to sow the seeds for someone else. Wan Qian's tone revealed a faint melancholy. Is this being jealous? She doesn't understand. Or do you say you have already fallen in love with the handsome Xiao Fan? Sewing. What does it mean? Su Rong wiped away her tears and looked puzzled. Sister Rong, don't misunderstand. Auntie is joking with us. Zhang Fan awkwardly touched his nose and hastily explained. Oh, I see. Su Rong took off her coat and handed it to Zhang Fan. It was not until then that Wan Qian saw a lot of blood on Zhang Fan's body. Xiao Fan, what's wrong with you? Where did you get so much blood? She hurriedly stepped forward and carefully looked at Zhang Fan, her beautiful face filled with concern. Auntie, don't worry, these blood are not mine. So, Zhang Fan briefly explained the incident where Su Rong smashed the back of Fu Chuanwu's head with a hoe just now. The blood droplets on his clothes were on Fu Chuanwu's body. Fortunately, you're okay. You really scared me to death. Wan Qian patted the bulging collar and said happily. Su Rong stood beside her, her gaze scanning back and forth between little auntie and Zhang Fan, feeling that their relationship was full of ambiguity. Is it difficult for Xiao Fan and Qian to have an affair? Otherwise, how could she care so much about Xiao Fan? Just like Wan Qian's jealousy, Su Rong's heart was also filled with inexplicable resentment, and even began to become a bit irritable. Rong, what happened just now? Is that bastard Fu Chuanwu causing trouble again? Since Chuanwen's death, Chuanwu has become increasingly impolite. Where is that bastard? The old folks in Baishi village can't spare him. We don't have to be afraid of old and young men making decisions for you. The villagers of Baishi village rushed over in small groups and quickly gathered into a large group. Being in a small mountain village, one thing that is very touching is that when a family is in trouble, everyone can help. Uncle, Fifth Lord, and village chief, thank you for taking care of me. Chuanwu did bring someone to cause trouble tonight, but he has already been driven away by Xiao Fan. Su Rong smiled and recounted the whole story to everyone. Ha, Xiao Fan, you seem so weak, I didn't expect you to be quite capable of fighting. Tang Wuye took a sip of the tobacco bag and pot, with a satisfied smile on his face. The more Zhang Fan can fight, the more he can pass on excellent genes to the Tang family. Tang Wuye is very beautiful in his heart. Xiao Fan, thanks to you tonight, otherwise our Rome will suffer. Xiao Fan is really good. This is a good thing of being brave and righteous. I should report to the town tomorrow. Yes, give Xiao Fan a commendation. A group of women holding children chattered incessantly, and some elderly aunties gave Zhang Fan a thumbs up. Tian, let's go home with me. I have something to discuss with you. Tang Wuye gave a glance to his daughter-in-law and wanted to call him back. Of course, what he is talking about is definitely about passing on the family line. However, what Tang Wuye didn't know was that Wan Qian had already understood his plan. If everything goes smoothly tonight, she might even have planted it long ago. Unfortunately, Su Rong was killed halfway, and her fertilized field could only be dry for a few more days. Wan Qian bit her lip and gave Zhang Fan a meaningful glance, only to reluctantly go back with her father-in-law. However, Su Rong accurately caught her gaze. It seems that Aunt Tian really has an affair with Xiao Fan. The woman's sixth sense is very strong, and Su Rong made an accurate judgment immediately based on intuition. In her eyes, Zhang Fan was like the flesh of Tang monk in Widow Village, and anyone who died of her husband wanted to take a bite. Alas, I will have multiple competitors again in the future. It was already midnight when Zhang Fan returned home. He sat at the table, looking at a strange book in front of him. This strange book is called Medical Martial Treasure Record, and is passed down by the ancestors of the Zhang family. The reason why he was able to escape unscathed tonight against the three Fu Chuanwu is largely due to this extraordinary book. However, this book is very strange. The text on it is like a heavenly book, completely incomprehensible, with only some lines and figures practicing martial arts that he can imitate. If it weren't for my father's early death, perhaps I would have been able to read through this extraordinary book. Zhang Fan muttered to himself. The medical treasure record is the greatest wealth of their Zhang family. If you can figure it out, let alone a few stinky thugs like Fu Chuanwu, no matter how many people there are, they may not be able to get close. Son, we have been here for generations, and the lives of the whole village depend on you. This is what his father said to Zhang Fan before his death, and he still doesn't understand his father's meaning until now. The lives of the whole village depend on me. Am I so great? At that time, he was very puzzled. However, seeing the old father extend his withered hands and a look of unwillingness in his eyes, he also felt relieved. The death of his father is a pain in Zhang Fan's heart. Of course, this pain is not for him alone, but for the whole village. A few years ago, a developer came here and said they had discovered a mine. Organize young and middle-aged people in the village to work and offer generous compensation. All the young and middle-aged people went for a while, but in the end, the mine collapsed and only a few survived. His father was trying to save someone, but a big stone fell from the mountain and hit him. At that time, almost all the villagers hung white sails, and many new graves were added on the mountain. Over time, this place became a widow's village. Su Rong's husband suffered in that mining accident. Zhang Fan followed his father's will and returned after graduation. Now, when he opens this strange book, the paper turns yellow and very fragile. Zhang Fan carefully flipped through the pages and then reached out his other hand to touch the bookmark on the table. As a result, the bookmark was not touched, but my hand was scratched by the scissors placed on the table. Zhang Fan took a deep breath. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind blew outside the door, causing the record of medical martial arts to be blown loudly. Zhang Fan immediately pressed with his hand, and blood dripped onto the yellowed paper. A light suddenly lit up and flew straight towards his eyebrows. Zhang Fan's pupils contracted. He found that the words on the strange book were actually missing. How could it be? It was still there just now. And that ray of light. What exactly is going on? Zhang Fan's face turned pale, his body swayed and almost fell to the ground. He closed his eyes in pain. What should we do? End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Shu. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Shu. Zhang Fan tried hard to recall the content of that strange book, praying to be able to record it. But at this moment, the image of a book slowly rises in my mind. Zhang Fan immediately opened his eyes, causing a huge uproar in his heart. That book, surprisingly, it appeared in his mind. And the handwriting is very clear. Zhang Fan closed his eyes again and sank his heart. And once again, the image of that strange book appeared in his mind. What shocked him even more was that all the ancient characters he couldn't understand were automatically translated into vernacular. Even the technique of using silver needles to move acupoints and the dynamic images of practicing martial arts are clearly displayed. Zhang Fan couldn't suppress his inner ecstasy and opened his eyes. This book not only records prescriptions for treating diseases and saving people, but also ancient prescriptions for alchemy. Most importantly, those pills are incredibly precious. If he develops it, he will definitely have a great reputation. Zhang Fan became more and more excited as he thought, wishing he could immediately absorb all his knowledge. He was immersed in a strange book and meditated according to the recorded content, and soon he noticed something unusual. There seems to be something wandering in the dantian. What is that? But that wisp of something resembling smoke swam through his limbs, crossing his meridians. It's like patrolling. Every time he passed by a place, Zhang Fan felt much lighter on his body. Zhang Fan opened his eyes, feeling refreshed. He jumped up from the bed, his body very light. Zhang Fan was secretly shocked. That wisp of smoke is so magical. Indeed, it is an ancestral treasure. This strange book is really amazing. Whether it's the method of regulating breathing or the prescription, they are all things that Zhang Fan has never seen in other books. Even if he learns half of the knowledge in books, he can achieve great status in the secular world. Zhang Fan became more and more excited as he thought, and he pushed open the door and walked out. Is it dawn now? Zhang Fan was taken aback. The sky was still foggy, surrounded by silence and occasional cicadas. A ray of light pierced through the clouds to the east, and the scenery gradually became clearer. Did he stay up all night? But Zhang Fan doesn't feel tired at all. On the contrary, he felt his body was very light, a feeling he had never experienced in over 20 years. Go for a run. When at school, Zhang Fan had a habit of running in the morning. Nowadays, the air in the mountain village is fresh, and the green grass on the roadside is still hanging with dew, making it more suitable for aerobic exercise. He stepped forward and ran lightly towards the village entrance. After a few rounds of back and forth, he sweated slightly. After running about 10 kilometers, Zhang Fan was ready to go home. Previously, he could only run a maximum of 5 kilometers, but last night, after observing the medical martial record, he surprisingly ran 10 kilometers in one breath without feeling tired. From this alone, his physical fitness has greatly improved. It's so hot. After the sun rose, the temperature also began to rise. Zhang Fan, covered in sweat, came to the well and poured a bucket of water on his head. Comfortable. The coolness suddenly hit, and Zhang Fan comfortably closed his eyes. It's quiet outside, with nothing but cicadas chirping. Shouldn't anyone come, right? Zhang Fan thought this way and took off his short sleeves directly. He stood naked by the well, with a lot of well water hanging up beside him. Zhang Fan hummed a small tune contentedly, but did not notice the footsteps outside. At this moment, Su Rong walked towards Zhang Fan's clinic carrying a basket of eggs. Wow, Su Rong's heart moved and her footsteps became extremely light. She looked towards the crack in the door, and Zhang Fan was standing in the courtyard to take a shower. He was naked, just enough to see his broad shoulders and strong muscles. Every one exudes the aura of a mature man. And these sturdy arms, if he lifts me up, I don't even know how powerful it is. Since her husband passed away, Su Rong has never seen the body of the opposite sex. Now that she sees Zhang Fan, her heart suddenly becomes hot. Especially those arms, leaning against them definitely gives a sense of security. At this moment, Zhang Fan turned around, lifted his foot onto the stone roller, lifted a towel, and began wiping his ankles. The arms are powerful, and the robust biceps are full of a sense of strength. Every action is full of temptation. Su Rong was extremely nervous. Gently biting one's own lips. Su Rong's entire heart was tightly lifted, and her breathing became rapid. She hasn't seen the body of the opposite sex for a long time, and today not only did she see it, but it was only a few meters away from her. This scene is simply beyond her control. If Zhang Fan turned his head at this moment, he could see a pair of eyes tightly staring at him at the crack of the door. Zhang Fan turned around and picked up the shampoo, just as his body was facing Su Rong. Su Rong widened her eyes and her heart thumped wildly. Grasping tightly at the collar of the clothes with both hands. Su Rong's face was so red that she could bleed. She knew the act of peeping was shameful, but her gaze had long been drawn to Zhang Fan and she couldn't move away. Xiao Fan looks thin, but his body is surprisingly so strong. If Su Rong's face was scorching hot, and she tried to shake her head to get rid of her thoughts. How could she have such thoughts? But it seems like I can't control myself to fantasize. On the other side, on a small rural road. Wan Qian quickened her pace and walked towards the clinic. She had a slight blush on her face, and the closer she got to the destination, the more nervous she became. Last night, Tang Wuye told her about continuing the incense ceremony. Zhang Fan is the only man in the village who has attended college. Coming back now, young and capable. For this widowed village, it is undoubtedly a coveted treasure. Last time I sought treatment from Zhang Fan, his handsome face and sturdy hands made her feel the power of a mature man. Wan Qian is willing to have a child with Zhang Fan. Thinking of his robust body, Wan Qian's face turned even redder. My body also started to heat up. She needs to send some supplements to Zhang Fan and have a chubby little boy with him in the future. Zhang Fan looks so handsome, the children of the two are definitely not inferior. Wan Qian's face was hot and dry, but her footsteps unconsciously accelerated. But before I could reach the door, I saw a sneaky figure lying outside. And that figure is very familiar. Wan Qian was startled and immediately quickened her pace. Isn't this Sister Su Rong? She was about to come forward and inquire, but Su Rong reacted extremely quickly and quickly turned around to signal her to remain silent. Shoo. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. You Can't Hide Me. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. You Can't Hide Me. Su Rong's heart sank when she saw that the person coming was Wan Qian. Sister-in-law, what are you doing? Wan Qian was puzzled in her heart and spoke softly. Su Rong's excitement at this moment had already been suppressed when she saw Wan Qian. She remembered the ambiguous relationship between Wan Qian and Zhang Fan before, and suddenly felt a bit uneasy in her heart. Look. Su Rong turned aside and gestured for Wan Qian to look towards the crack in the door. Wan Qian didn't know why, so she and Su Rong poked their heads to look. At this glance, Zhang Fan's gaze was firmly attracted. She bit her cherry lips and unconsciously swallowed saliva. Wan Qian, like Su Rong, has long been extremely lonely in her heart. And at this moment, the powerful opposite-sex Shen body is displayed in front of her. How can she not be tempted? How's it going? Are you having a big feast for your eyes? Su Rong spoke vaguely. Even when Zhang Fan sucked out poisonous blood for herself, she was already tempted by that boy. If we could have a spring night out, I don't know what it tastes like. Wan Qian blushed with embarrassment and spoke softly, "Ah Rong, the two of us are really, a little aunt and a little sister. Law, actually sneaking a peek at the newborn taking a shower. Well, it seems a bit shameful." Su Rong smiled awkwardly. However, the two glanced at each other and neither of them retreated. Instead, they coincidentally leaned towards the crack in the door. At this moment, Zhang Fan had no idea that someone was watching him take a shower outside. He didn't dry his body and put on his clothes until the water was washed. The two people outside saw that the show had ended. I arrived at the foot of a peach tree, still unsatisfied. "Ah Rong, why did you come here?" When the heat on her face subsided, Wan Qian asked. The two of them secretly did something bad together, and at this moment, their faces were still a bit awkward. But both of them were insightful and did not discuss what had just happened. "Didn't you get bitten by a snake yesterday?" "We didn't have anything good at home, so we picked up some eggs and brought them over." Su Rong truthfully told her that she was generous and did not conceal it. She looked up and down at Wan Qian. "What are you here for?" Wan Qian's heart was startled. "No, it's nothing." She spoke hesitantly, but refused to say what it was for. Su Rong looked suspicious. Wan Qian's face was a bit hot, but she was too embarrassed to say that she came here because of borrowing seeds. "Aunt Xiao Qian, are you having an affair with Xiao Fan?" Su Rong asked directly. "You should know. Su Rong is a shrewd and capable woman. Otherwise, after her husband's death, she wouldn't have taken Chunhua with her and treated her like a younger sister." So, Wan Qian's little carelessness couldn't be concealed from her eyes. "What are you talking about?" Wan Qian hurriedly lowered her head, but her face had already turned red. Su Rong felt quite uncomfortable looking at her. "Is Wan Qian and Zhang Fan already together?" Su Rong sneered, "You don't need to cover up in front of me. Can I still tell the world if things don't work out?" Wan Qian hesitated and wanted to deny it. "Auntie, I actually saw your caution a long time ago because I've seen so many things about men and women." Thinking of Zhang Fan, Su Rong couldn't help but laugh and scold, thinking to herself that this kid is truly blessed. Wan Qian blushed with embarrassment. "Ah Rong, stop talking." The blush on her face is almost burning to the base of her neck. "You just saw it too." Su Rong was not shy and started talking in front of Wan Qian. Wan Qian has a thin face, and it was her first time doing the peeping. Now that she mentions it again, Wan Qian can't stand it anymore. "Don't say anything, be careful not to be heard." Wan Qian nervously looked around, afraid that someone might pass by. Su Rong smiled and said, "But you haven't said what you're doing here yet." Wan Qian hesitated a bit. After all, it was not very honorable to speak out about borrowing seeds. "Ah Rong, we are all bees and butterflies from Xiaofan. Besides, you must be here not only to thank Xiaofan for saving his life last night, right?" Wan Qian wanted to change the topic, but Su Rong was so seasoned that she brought it back with just one sentence. "Auntie, don't digress from the topic." Su Rongjiao smiled and picked a peach blossom, sniffing it with great interest. "I can't hide it from the other party when I see it." Wan Qian finished organizing her thoughts, mustered up courage, and finally spoke up about borrowing seeds. "What?" Su Rong was shocked and shouted out loud. Wan Qian quickly covered her mouth, her face pale. "Don't be so loud, you'll be heard." She looked around anxiously and didn't let go until she saw no one. Su Rong looked at her in shock and said, "So, your father. Law called you over." Wan Qian nodded shyly. "You also know about the situation of the Tang family. They won't let the Tang family become extinct." Compared to her father. Law, who was over 50 years old, she would undoubtedly choose the young and handsome Zhang Fan without hesitation. Su Rong sighed, knowing deeply that Wan Qian was not easy. "Ah Rong, you must not tell anyone about this matter." Wan Qian held the other person's hand and begged. "Don't worry, I won't say anything." Su Rong readily agreed. "I have something else I would like to ask for your help with." Wan Qian looked at the other person and gritted her teeth, saying. "What?" "I would like to ask you not to come to Zhang Fan during my time. Su Rong is only around 30 years old this year, and even when working on the ground, her skin is still fair and smooth. Especially her round neckline, swaying and swaying as she walked, caught the attention of countless people. If Wan Qian is a fresh azalea, then Su Rong is a charming red rose. She was afraid that if Zhang Fan and Su Rong reconciled, she would lose interest in her own affairs. If during this period, he and Su Rong isn't good genes dispersed by people. Wan Qian wants Zhang Fan to be completely her own. Su Rong was stunned, but she also understood her concerns. "It's not impossible for me to agree," Su Rong said thoughtfully. Wan Qian's eyes lit up and she quickly asked, "If you have any conditions, feel free to ask. If you succeed, Zhang Fan will belong to me in the future." Su Rongmei smiled and said. "What?" Wan Qian didn't expect Su Rong to propose such conditions. "Are you unwilling?" Wan Qian hesitated a bit. A good man like Zhang Fan can't be found in the whole village with lanterns on. She certainly couldn't bear to part with it. But Su Rong's attraction lies there, as a woman, she would be tempted. Not to mention Zhang Fan. For the sake of her future child's good genes, Wan Qian reluctantly agreed. Su Rong smiled proudly and couldn't wait in her heart. According to Zhang Fan's ability, it may take a month to complete. The next time, Zhang Fan belongs to himself. Thinking of his body, Su Rong's heart began to restless, emitting warmth all over her body. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Teacher Tian comes to report. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Teacher Tian comes to report. Just as the two were discussing how to divide up Zhang Fan took a shower and walked out of the clinic. He saw Wan Qian and Su Rong standing under the peach blossom tree at a glance. Su Rong was wearing a tight-fitting small shirt with tight buttons, showcasing her proud capital, as if she could also see the profound career line through her small shirt. She was wearing a pair of cool shorts on her lower body, with long and slender legs, and her skin was pure white, particularly prominent in the green. And Wan Qian's attire is relatively conservative, but the curves she reveals should not be underestimated. Aunt Xiao Qian, Sister Su Rong, what are you doing? The coolness on my body, which had just cooled down, has now dissipated. When Zhang Fan saw the two of them, he felt a bit thirsty. Because these two women have become more mature since losing their husbands, like peaches, with the possibility of rising or falling at any time. Su Rong saw Zhang Fan coming and quickly approached with a smile. It's nothing, we just got here and chatted a few times when we met. She reacted quickly and her expression was not unusual. Zhang Fan was taken aback, fortunately he had finished taking a shower. If you are caught by two people, you may make some jokes. At this moment, Wan Qian also stepped forward and handed the things in her hand to Zhang Fan. She lowered her head and spoke shyly. This is for you. Zhang Fan declined several times, but could not resist the enthusiasm of the two and could only hand over the gift. It's too hot outside, let's go in and talk. Zhang Fan invited two people to their home for a cup of herbal tea. Su Rong didn't refuse either, and entered the courtyard with Wan Qian. Now Zhang Fan's residence is behind the village clinic. That is an independent small courtyard with 3 small rooms inside. However, because he is usually the only one living there, there is not much cleaning inside. Sorry, the house is too messy. Men, normal. Su Rong looked up and down at Zhang Fan's room, thinking about something in her heart. Let me help you tidy up. When Wan Qian saw Zhang Fan's messy bed sheets, she didn't care about the tea he brought and just picked it up. There is also Zhang Fan's close-fitting clothes on the bed, carrying the masculine aura of a man. Wan Qian blushed and put her clothes aside. Su Rong saw Wan Qian helping to tidy up, and it was not good for her to be idle. After all, after Xiao Fan finished broadcasting, it belonged to her. So she picked up a big broom and helped the man she liked clean up the yard. Auntie Xiao Qian, sister Law Rung, are you here? Zhang Fan was at a loss for what to do with the two people's attentive behavior. What's even more terrifying is that Su Rong was facing herself, and as soon as she bent down, she could see her tense bulge. Sister Su Rong, Sister Su Rong. Shouts came from outside, and it sounded quite urgent. Sister-in-law, it seems like someone is calling you. Zhang Fan heard the shout and quickly spoke up. Su Rong straightened up and wiped away her sweat. Who is it? A person stepped into the door with a hurried expression. I found you, something big happened. Tian Yume ran all the way, with sweat oozing from her face. Teacher Tian. Why are you here? What happened? Su Rong threw down her broom and looked at her nervously. Tian Yume is a teacher at the town high school and also the homeroom teacher of Chunhua. It's spring flowers. Tian Yume was sweating anxiously and said, spring flowers were kidnapped this morning, and you gave me such a note. That person asked me to come find you, so I quickly rode my bike over. What? Su Rong's face changed instantly. Yume. Zhang Fan stared at the person in front of him, feeling very familiar. He tentatively called out the name from his memory. At this moment, Tian Yume was also attracted by Zhang Fan's attention. She looked at Zhang Fan with a puzzled expression. After a while, she looked at him incredulously. Are you Zhang Fan? Why are you here? Tian Yume was both surprised and delighted. Zhang Fan is her junior high school classmate, and they haven't seen each other since they graduated from junior high school. I didn't expect to meet you here. Zhang Fan was also surprised, but this was not the time to reminisce about the past. Our Rong sister. Law, what is written on the note? Zhang Fan walked up to her and asked. Su Rong quickly opened the note, and when she saw the handwriting clearly, her face turned pale. What's wrong? Wan Qian heard the commotion and walked out of the room. Seeing that both Su Rong and Zhang Fan were silent, Wan Qian had a bad premonition in her heart. What should we do? Su Rong was so anxious that tears welled up in her eyes. Zhang Fan's eyes sank and he said, it seems we need to make a trip. What is written on the note? Tian Yume is also very worried. As mentioned above, let Xiao Fan go to the wealthy bathing center in the town alone, otherwise Chunhua will have a worry about her life. At the end of the note, it was specifically reminded not to report to the police, otherwise you will bear the consequences. Su Rong crumpled the note into a ball and said sadly, they're here for Xiao Fan. How unreasonable. Tian Yume trembled with anger all over her body. These people are completely lawless. How dare you threaten to commit kidnapping in broad daylight? We'll call the police. I don't believe the police can't cure them. Tian Yume's face turned red with anger. Su Rong spoke in despair, you can't call the police. They are all a group of inhumane people who will definitely do something to harm Chunhua. Chunhua, Wan Qian looked worried. Sister-in-law, don't be afraid, I'll go. Zhang Fan said in a deep voice. No way. Su Rong immediately shook her head. They are clearly coming for you, if you go, I'm afraid they will. Last time Zhang Fan hit them and they fled, this time they will definitely seek revenge. Sister-in-law, they are calling to see me by name. If I don't go, Chunhua will be in danger. Zhang Fan spoke calmly and firmly. But. Sister-in-law, stay at home with peace of mind and I will be back soon. Zhang Fan entered the room and picked up something, then spoke to Tian. Let's go, old classmate. Could you please guide me today? Tian quickly nodded. The matter was urgent, so it could only be done for now. There is no bus in the village, so it's too late to borrow a bicycle now. Zhang Fan can only get on Tian's bus. Hold on firmly. Tian stepped on the pedal and rode with Zhang Fan towards the town. The bicycle is very fast, and when it leaves the village, it is a paddy field filled with rice, sometimes passing through a small forest. Tian was skilled in her movements. Although Zhang Fan was worried about the safety of Chunhua, she couldn't help but take a distracted look at her old classmate. She is wearing formal clothes today, with a white shirt on top and long pants on the bottom. But it still cannot cover her curves. Perhaps because she was a teacher at school, she exuded a youthful aura. Tian vigorously pedaled on her bike, while Lu Yu wanted to sway left and right. Suddenly, she was not careful and the wheels slipped into a small pit, causing the bike to shake violently. Tian screamed out loud and fell forward. Zhang Fan quickly reached out and hugged Lu Yueyao, with his toes resting on the ground as support. The other hand grasped the front of the car forward. Tian and he bumped into each other. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Tiger Crossing the Wolf Pack. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Tiger Crossing the Wolf Pack. Zhang Fan held her waist in his hand, feeling tight and powerful. Due to the height difference, Zhang Fan just hugged her in his arms. The pleasant smell of Tian came from her nose. Tian only realized after being frightened. Behind her is Zhang Fan's chest. Through the thin fabric, it seems that the texture of his muscles can still be felt. The hot breath just blew into her ears, crispy and numb, bringing a strange feeling. Tian had never had such intimate contact with the opposite sex before, and her face turned so red that she could drip water. The atmosphere is somewhat ambiguous and unclear. Zhang Fan, I'm fine now. Tian moved her body and spoke softly. Zhang Fan felt the softness of her body and a wave of restlessness in her heart. Oh, good. He quickly let go, but the palm still seemed to have a soft touch. Let's go quickly, I'm afraid I won't have time. Tian blushed and spoke up, getting off the car sideways. Zhang Fan's heart was filled with a charming thought, which was suppressed at this moment. I'll give you a ride and you'll show me the way. He sat in the front seat and gestured for Tian to get in the car. Tian sat cross-legged in the back seat, holding onto the corner of his clothes with her small hand. Let's go. Zhang Fan adjusted his direction and stepped on the bicycle pedal at a very fast speed. Tian let out a small exclamation of surprise and instinctively wrapped her arms around her old classmate's waist and abdomen. Zhang Fan's body was tense, trying hard to step on the bicycle. Since last night's contemplation of medical martial records, his power has become much stronger. Tian looked at her old classmate's sturdy back and recalled a scene just now. He just hugged her like that, and behind him came his strong and masculine aura. De Fu Hao Bathing Center. This is Su Rong's sister, Chunhua. Lu Chang became interested when he saw the student sister tied up by his subordinates. Chunhua stared fiercely at Lu Chang with her eyes wide open. She wanted to curse loudly, but her mouth was blocked and she couldn't say anything. Yes, she just got tied up from school. This girl has a strong temper and even scratched her brother. The man covered his face, and there were still 1 or 2 bloodstains on his face. Boss, the spring flowers have already been brought, will we just wait for Zhang Fan to fall into the trap? Fu Chuanwu looked at Lu Chang's eyes and felt a little uneasy. What's urgent? Lu Qianyin crouched down with a smile and touched Chuanhua's face with his hand. I'm indeed a junior high school student, how tender this little skin is, he exclaimed with admiration. He licked the corner of his mouth, his eyes shining brightly. He has played with many women, but he really hasn't played with student girls. This body is also well developed, green and astringent like a plum. The most important thing is still a place. Boss, Chunhua is just a hostage, our target is Zhang Fan. Lu Chang gave him a displeased look and said, I know, you need to say it. He asked Fu Chuanwu to capture Chunhua, of course, in order to blackmail Zhang Fan. The previous account has not been settled yet. He can't just forget about it. However, Fu Chuanwu is really a good girl. When Lu Chang saw the delicate and tender flesh of spring flowers, he immediately had evil thoughts. Fu Chuanwu panicked and said, Boss, we agreed before. Men understand men the most, and with just one glance at Fu Chuanwu, Lu Chang knows what he wants to do. But he absolutely can't let Lu Chang do this. What kind of thing are you, dare you come and point fingers at me? Lu Chang's face darkened. Boss, Chunhua is my younger sister. Please hold her high and let her go. Fu Chuanwu was completely panicked at this moment. No matter how inhumane he is, he can't just watch his own younger sister being mistreated by Lu Chang. His sister is actually at school. In the future, if you succeed, you can still stand out. If it falls into Lu Chang's hands, it will really be ruined. Let her go. Lu Chang sneered, you all owe me a lot of money. It's not impossible to use your sister to offset the debt, is it? Fu Chuanwu changed his expression and said, no, it's not possible, boss. When Lu Chang asked him to tie Fu Chunhua up before, he didn't say that. Lu Chang told him that as long as Zhang Fan was attracted, he would naturally let his sister leave. But now, no way. Is this your the final say or my the final say? Lu Chang's face was gloomy as the others approached and surrounded Fu Chuanwu. Wash the people thoroughly and send them to my room. Lu Chang laughed heartily, his eyes shining even brighter. Chuanhua's expression was flustered, and her eyes were filled with tears. She looked at Fu Chuanwu in despair. Don't harm my sister. Fu Chuanwu roared and rushed forward, his eyes bloodshot. At this final moment, for the sake of spring flowers, he chose to resist Lu Chang. Seeking death. Lu Chang snorted coldly, waved his hand, and in an instant, 5 or 6 men surged up. At first, Fu Chuanwu even knocked down one person, but later on he almost only had to be rubbed on the ground. Tears welled up in Chuanhua's eyes as she struggled desperately. Fu Chuanwu's mouth was covered in blood from being beaten, and he fell heavily to the ground. Lu Chang's subordinates kicked him fiercely in the abdomen. He rolled on the ground in pain. Betraying me. Lu Chang snorted coldly, out of measure. Beat me to death. Yes. The man stepped on Fu Chuanwu's face and threw his fist at him fiercely. Stop it. The door was kicked open and Zhang Fan came alone. Please. Help Chunhua. Fu Chuanwu's face was swollen into a pig's head, his mouth covered in blood, and he vaguely begged for help. Zhang Fan glanced coldly and ignored it. Release the person. Lu Chang squinted his eyes. How dare this kid come alone? Did you beat up my people last time? Lu Chang looked up and down at Zhang Fan, but he was just an ordinary person. It's me. Zhang Fan spoke coldly. Aren't you looking for me? Let the person go, I'll do whatever you want. Chunhua sobbed as she wanted to get closer to Zhang Fan, but the man pulled her back. Do you have the qualifications to negotiate with me? Lu Chang sneered. At first, he did kidnap Chunhua as a threat chip, but now it's different. Accounts need to be calculated, people. He also needs it. Do you mean what you say? Zhang Fan's eyes sank and his fists clenched tightly. Don't you take a look at whose territory it is. Lu Chang didn't want to talk too much nonsense to Zhang Fan, so he waved his hand directly. A group of people surrounded Zhang Fan in groups. Zhang Fan's qi sank into the dantian, and his body began to accumulate strength. If it were him before, facing so many people, he would definitely feel weak. But he's different now. That book, Medical Martial Treasure Record, greatly enhanced his strength. Let's go together. Everyone shouted and besieged Zhang Fan. Zhang Fan withdrew his right foot and charged forward with full force, kicking the person in front directly. He used his ingenuity and knew the acupoints of the human body the most, and suddenly the person was numb and couldn't stand up. Zhang Fan was unstoppable and knocked down the people who came. He punched one after another, so fast that it was almost invisible. Really a badass. The man behind him seized the opportunity to sneak attack with a wooden stick. Zhang Fan quickly dodged behind him as if he had eyes growing. His wooden stick was firmly knotted and hit his accomplice's head. Ah! The man let out a scream, "Monkey, you damn it!" He fell to the ground, howling in pain. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Thank you, Master. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Thank you, Master. The person who was called a monkey was instantly dumbfounded. He was clearly heading towards Zhang Fan. How could he have hit the wrong person? Zhang Fan sneered and took the wooden stick from his hand, sweeping it fiercely towards his knee. He knocked down Lu Chang's subordinates 3 times, 5 times, and 2 times. Lu Chang's forehead broke out in cold sweat. He didn't expect Zhang Fan to be so strong. Damn it, I'm going to kill you. Lu Chang was furious beyond control. Zhang Fan knocked down all the thugs on his territory. This domineering behavior was like stepping on Lu Chang's face. If he doesn't find the venue, how will he continue to live in town in the future? Lu Chang's hand touched under the table. Draw a shotgun from there. Lu Chang sneered, now I'll see how you hide. No matter how powerful Zhang Fan is, he can't escape the bullets fired from his gun. Being pointed at by the dark muzzle of the gun, even the most ferocious person would panic, but Zhang Fan was not. His body was as straight as a pine tree, his face indifferent, and he even showed a cold smile at the corner of his mouth. Stinky kid, are you not afraid of death? Lu Chang drank fiercely in anger and embarrassment. Damn it. I'm not even afraid of being targeted by my hunting gun. Is this kid really a reckless master? Boss Lu, if I have any major problems, you won't be able to survive either. Zhang Fan smiled and reached out to pull over a chair. Under the gaze of everyone, he sat down casually. What does this mean? Lu Chang was surprised. Is there a stronger backstage behind you, kid? In the past month, have you often had headaches and felt like your head was about to explode every night? Zhang Fan leaned back in the chair and asked with his head tilted. How do you know? Lu Chang was surprised and his eyes widened. Don't ask me how I found out. If what I expected is correct, it's a sign of extreme illness. If not treated in time, you can only live for at most 3 more months and end up dead. Fart it. Use these nonsense to fool me, do you think I will believe it? I'm just pointing out your symptoms, believe it or not. Zhang Fan's eyes were blazing with flames. Last night, his medical skills greatly improved due to his contemplation of the record of medical martial arts. So now, he can diagnose the symptoms of the other person with only the technique of observing, smelling, questioning, and cutting. Your left rib, the third from top to bottom, is broken. Recently, you have been experiencing frequent chest tightness, which is why. There is a pigeon egg-sized abscess on the sole of your right foot. Your lower abdomen has often experienced a burning pain in the past year. Zhang Fan's words left Lu Chang dumbfounded. Because every illness mentioned by the former is true and without any errors, it is truly terrifying. Lu Chang put away the dark muzzle of the gun and set the hunting rifle aside. Boss Lu, your eyes are deeply sunken and your footsteps are floating. If I'm right, you haven't had even one surname life in the past 3 years. Although you miss women very much, every time, you will feel lethargic and discouraged. Upon hearing this, Lu Chang was even more shocked in his heart. The young man in front of me is really terrifying. His wise eyes seemed to be able to see through everything about him. Especially when Lu Chang thought that there were still 3 months left in his life, he no longer dared to put on airs. He quickly smiled apologetically and walked forward with a submissive appearance, flattering Zhang Fan. "Little brother, oh. No, master, you're really amazing. I do have a disease on me. Could you please come back and save my life?" Previously, Lu Chang had seen many doctors privately and had also received treatment. But those are useless. Now Zhang Fan can accurately state his symptoms with just one glance at him. It's just a divine being. "Master, as long as you can save me, let me do anything." Lu Chang is now completely discouraged. "First, send the spring flowers back safely to me. As for saving you, it depends on my mood." Zhang Fan leaned back in the chair, closed his eyes, pinched the corners of his eyes with both hands, and said calmly, Okay, I'll do everything." Lu Chang turned around and shouted at his thugs with a fierce expression, "You fools, didn't you hear what the master said? Hurry up and untie Chunhua." Everyone was dumbfounded. The boss's face-changing speed is too fast, isn't it? What are you still doing in a daze? When Lu Chang saw someone motionless, he angrily kicked him. My subordinates immediately stepped forward to untie Chunhua. Chunhua broke free from the rope and ran to Zhang Fan's side, staring fiercely at Lu Chang. She is also a half-year-old child, of course she knows what Lu Qiangang's eyes and words mean. Lu Chang smiled and dared not speak a word of anger. After all, his sexual happiness in the second half of his life depends entirely on Zhang Fan. "Brother Xiaofan." Chunhua held on to Zhang Fan's hand, her eyes still filled with panic. "It's okay." Zhang Fan rubbed her head and said, "Teacher Yumei is outside. If you go out and find her, she will come and pick you up." Chunhua nodded and walked outside. When she reached the entrance of the bathing center, she turned back to look at her second brother lying on the ground. Fu Chuanwu was beaten to the point where he was covered in blood and had already passed out. The second brother took her to the bathing center today, and at the critical moment, he still wanted to save her. My second brother sometimes makes people hate him so much that their teeth itch, but sometimes he pities his lack of competitiveness. I also want to take this person away. Seeing Chunhua reminiscing about her brother-sister relationship, Zhang Fan pointed in the direction of Fu Chuanwu. How could Lu Chang not agree? "No problem." After speaking, he looked at Fu Chuanwu. "You're lucky, kid. Chunhua, take him back first, don't worry about me." Zhang Fan spoke lightly. As long as Lu Chang still needs treatment, he dare not do anything to him. But Chunhua hesitated a bit. How could she leave Xiaofan brother behind? Fu Chuanwu stumbled and stood up, pulling Chunhua out. "What are you still waiting for? Hurry up and leave." Fu Chuanwu's eyes were filled with fear. What if he left a little later and Lu Chang changed his mind? Chunhua wanted to say something more, but Fu Chuanwu had already pulled her away from the bathing center. Lu Chang looked at each other under his hands, but dared not move again. Zhang Fan saw that the person had already left, and his suspended heart was mostly relieved. Lu Chang smiled obsequiously and said, "Look, I don't know when the master can heal me." Zhang Fan glanced at him sideways, with a smile on his lips. "Your illness cannot be delayed, just today." Lu Chang was so grateful that he almost knelt down and kowtowed to him a few times. "Thank you, master. Thank you, master." Lu Chang stood up with a runny nose and tears. He is finally saved. "Master, if you have anything I can do for you, just give me your orders." Zhang Fan looked around and frowned slightly. This place is not clean enough, find a quieter place. End of this chapter.